So we're back in the studio, and this is a new episode of our podcast, Kempire Radio. As usual, I'm going to, first of all, sorry, it's been so long. It really hasn't been that long. It hasn't been that long. I have tried. I wish I could do a weekly podcast, but I have to figure out my time. I got to figure out the team. But I appreciate all of you that do listen and do always tell me, I can't wait for another podcast, because I really do believe that this is a different experience than you get on YouTube or on any other platform that we create content. So this podcast is where I'm going to talk about my trip. I'm going to talk about the Real Housewives of New York. And we have to talk about the new podcast episode that Bethany and Jill Zarin recently did. So guys, it is so interesting to be back. As you know, if you followed me, first of all, shout out to the members of our Kempire YouTube channel. That's where I was actually posting exclusive photos and videos and just conversations about my trip. So my trip originally was just to go to Greece, Athens, Greece specifically. And at the last minute while I'm traveling, and we talked about this here on the podcast, I said, I quit my corporate job so that I could have the flexibility to be like, in the middle of a trip, I'm going to extend it. This was the very first time that I ever did something like that, especially as a tourist. As a tourist, we're very sort of like follow the rules, do certain things, plot, plan. So I was really in my Leo energy. I have a Leo moon. I was really in my Leo energy. And I was like, you know what? Let me just keep checking the flight. All right, let me give you the story. So originally, as you know, I planned a birthday trip to go to London. Did that, had a great time, loved London, can't wait to go back. Even had a London meetup with some of you that watch and listen to the content. That was fun. But in making the plans for my birthday trip, this trip to Greece came up. This idea for a trip to Greece came up. So I did that. I was like, why not? Why not? So, and mind you, I did this all ahead of time, because if I had planned to do a Greece trip at the last minute, those ticket prices for anyone thinking about going to Greece, no, during the summertime, it's expensive to go to Greece, to fly to Greece. If you're trying to go last minute, I had booked my tickets months before, so the ticket prices weren't terrible. So I had originally planned that, but before I left, I kept on thinking to myself, I kind of want to go to Amsterdam. My friends, when I was in London, I was so close in London, they were like, why don't you come to Amsterdam? It didn't work out, but I said, you know what? When I go to Greece, maybe I will just go to Amsterdam then. So before I left, literally like the Sunday before, like the week before I left, I wanted to just check. I said, let me see if I change my flight to leave from Amsterdam a week later. And at the time, I was going to get maybe like a couple of $100 back as a refund or a credit. And I just was like, do I really want to do that? Should I do that? This is the tourist in me. Should I do that? I don't know. What do the cards say? Some tarot cards. What do the cards say? What does the universe say? Should I do it? Only come to find out that Wednesday when I was said, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. I look. And mind you, when I had contacted Delta about, the possibility of this, how much would this look like? They were like, well, please keep in mind, the prices can dramatically change if you don't book this now. And I was like, all right, I'll get back to you. I'm in my head, I'm thinking, you're just saying that. Oh, no, it dramatically changed. That Wednesday after that Sunday when I was looking, it was like triple, more than quadruple the price. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. It's not worth it. The amount of money that they wanted me to fly from Amsterdam back to New York, I was like, I can literally go back to New York, fly from New York, and go to Amsterdam. It's not worth it for me. And probably pay for my hotel. Not worth it for me. But I did say to myself, silently to myself, I said, you know what? When I'm in Greece, I will check again. So I went to dinner with Femtaro. We did a collaboration, and she took me out to have traditional Greek food. And something told me, I was just like, let me just double check to look at this flight. I don't know what told me to double check. And I checked, and the price, and mind you, you have to pay attention, especially if you're looking at the app. I was like, wait a minute, this is saying I would get a credit? Like a major credit, bigger credit than when I looked on that Sunday. So this was the universe saying, you need to do this. You need to do this. And so that night, because there were a couple of things I had to plot. I had to, first of all, book that flight from Amsterdam to New York. But then I had to figure out my flight from Athens to Amsterdam. So, and then I had to figure out, where am I going to stay? It was a situation. It was a situation, but not a bad situation. It was sort of like, okay, universe, everything is falling into place the way that it's supposed to fall into place. So that's exactly what I did. And if you know me, if you've listened to the podcast before, there's something about Amsterdam. There's something about the Netherlands that I have some sort of connection with. I don't know if it was a past life, but it brings me inner peace. Walking the streets of Amsterdam brings me inner peace. Seeing the canals and things. It's a beautiful city. It's probably really underrated. I know people go there for other reasons, like, smoke. I still have not smoked. And I have friends that live there that easily I could smoke with. I just, that's not my calling. I must have been a lush and a pothead in a past life. I just have no feeling for it. And I also don't go there for the ladies of the night. But I did walk through the red light district, which I've been before. This wasn't my first time, but this was sort of like my first time walking through it during the day. And I didn't expect the ladies to be out. And it's so funny when you go to different corners, very different ladies, and not them banging on the madam, I don't swing that way. But the journalist in me wanted to be like, you know what? Because, well, not the journalist in me, the person that is who I am today. For those that feel like I've just started doing this, I've been interviewing people for years. I've interviewed hundreds of people. The journalist in me wanted to be like, how much would it be for me to get your story? And part of me thought I could literally go and pay these women to get their story, and if they would be open to it. I just wasn't in that headspace. I'm supposed to be unpacking. I'm supposed to be on vacation, but you never know. I might go back to Amsterdam and do that. I want to know their story, because I know everyone has a story, and you might be surprised at what you will get from that story, both personally, professionally. Who knows? So I will definitely be back to Amsterdam. This was like my 5th trip to Amsterdam. I have friends in Amsterdam. I've just made a new friend in Amsterdam. So I will be back in Amsterdam. Anyways, so originally my trip was just supposed to be Athens. I had a great time in Athens. It was hot. I expected it to be hot, but it's one thing to expect it and then to experience it. But I had a good time. I had Greek food. I had all kinds of food. I went shopping. I got all kinds of different evil eyes. I have so many different evil eye bracelets. And I forgot to actually get like one of the regular evil eyes, even though my friend who is from Athens, he actually brought me an evil eye years ago. So I have one here in the studio. But I meant to get like one of the big ones. Anyways, I'll be back. I didn't do like Mykonos or any of those other places. I did go to one other island. I can't pronounce it. We had a day out on the boat, which was nice. We saw a dolphin. It was nice. It was nice to kind of get out and see a different part of the world. I've wanted to go to Greece for a very long time, and there's still more parts of Greece that I want to see. So I will definitely be back. Well, I did not expect to extend my trip, but like I explained to you what happened. I extended my trip and I flew to Amsterdam. First of all, I don't know if it's just Athens airport or if it's just Athens during the summer airport. It took me like almost 2 hours just to check my bag. So I had originally paid for like, you can pay for, if you want, like, I think it was like 30 something kg in order for you, if you want to, instead of just the standard 23. And I paid for more. So once I waited in one line, once I got to the guy, he was like, oh, no, you got to go to this other line. Mind you, I went to that line. I was like, I have to wait in the line, even though I just waited in this line. Yep. Some people were trying to skip the line. They're like, well, because everyone was being told the same thing. So that line took forever. The lady told me because of the size of my luggage, she was like, oh, you have to bring it over to the other place. I said, ma'am, is that place going to have a line? It didn't. I was like the only person that went there. But it was chaotic at this Athens airport, and our flight was delayed. Look, it was fine. I would prefer a delay, even just like an hour, 2 hour delay, than them cancel your trip, because that was the last thing that I needed. So the flight was fine. I get to Amsterdam. I feel refreshed already. As soon as I land and I'm in the Netherlands, I'm like, first of all, the temperature was dramatically different. It was dramatically different. And I think the next day, Amsterdam had like a really bad storm. I think it was the next day. It had a really bad storm, And then later that day when I went out walking, there were a lot of down trees and things like that. But to me, just waking up, listening to the rain against my window pane, it was actually comforting. It was actually comforting. And I honestly wanted to spend the day in, at least during the day, to do some work, to catch up on some work. Because, when I was in Athens, I was working a little bit, but I didn't work a lot. So I wanted to catch up on some work. The place that I stayed was actually like an apart hotel. And that wasn't even intentional. I was going to stay at a hotel, but I was like, oh, this seems feasible. I like the pricing, especially during the summer. And the location wasn't bad. It wasn't in a touristy area, but it still wasn't far from like central Amsterdam. The guy that, first of all, the guy that was at the desk, at the reception desk, he was hot. He was, come on. So he greets me, because when I first get there, there's no one there. So he greets me. I'm like, oh. And he was like, I'm going to take you to the room and I'm going to show you all of the amenities. And that was actually a first. So I already love that. So he takes, and the name of the place, because I know a lot of you going to want to know the name, it's called the Wittenberg. And it was actually really nice. So he takes me through all the things. I'm just like looking at him, trying to pay attention to, and I did pay attention. But he's very good looking. So it was a little of a distraction, and you weren't expecting it. So he's showing me all the things of this apartment, basically. It basically was an apartment with sort of like a mezzanine, meaning that the bedroom was sort of upstairs. So you had the bedroom and the bathroom upstairs. And then you had the living space downstairs. It had a washer and dryer. It had a dishwasher. It had a stove, all that stuff. So I went to Albert Heijn, which is their grocery store there that was nearby. And I went there to kind of get some groceries for the week. I didn't really get a lot. I mean, that was the only downside. London, you spoiled me, because I felt like everywhere I went, I could use Apple Pay. And you can use Apple Pay in Amsterdam. However, there's certain places that you can't use Visa, American Express, or MasterCard. And then I'm like, so what can I use, madam? There's certain places, not sort of like central, but there's certain Albert Heijns, because this happened to me before in Amsterdam, and I forgot. You can use Apple Pay on the trains and things like that. And that's actually literally only a couple of weeks new when I got there, which I was like, good. Because I didn't want to have to go get another pass and things like, which is fine. Most of the time you can really walk or use a bike. I'm not using a bike in central Amsterdam. You got to be a bike expert in order to do that. So that was the only sort of hiccup. Luckily, before I left Greece, I had gotten some euros. Luckily, because that was the only way I was going to get these groceries, is by paying cash. All right. So while I'm in Amsterdam, my friends are busy because, this was last minute. So people are working. So they know that I'm fine because I've been to Amsterdam before. I'm camping. This is what they refer to as me figuring out what I'm going to do. They refer to it as camping, meaning like tours and things like that. So I'm already booking tours. I'm booking things that I've wanted to do, but I haven't done, even though this is like my 5th trip there. I did a queer history tour. I did the Royal Palace. I had seen the Royal Palace multiple times, but I never did the tour, which is actually a really good tour. Even my friends that are from there have never been inside. It's worth it if you go to Amsterdam to do the Royal Palace. It is. I had a really good time. It wasn't too crowded either. They also had right across at the other church, they had a photo exhibit, and I wanted to do that. But then here's the thing. What I ended up doing, because I was talking with my other friends that live in Cologne, Germany, which is only like a 3-4 hour train ride. So I said, I'm going to Amsterdam. It's like, why don't you come to Cologne this weekend for Pride? It's Pride in Cologne, which is apparently, according to my friend, the biggest Pride in Europe. And when you go there, you're like, oh, it feels like it. So I only had a couple of days, well, more than a couple of days in Amsterdam, but those days went really quickly before I was getting ready to leave on the weekend, take the train to Cologne, which is very civilized. Our train system here in the US, I wish we had a train system like Europe, because it takes you to other countries so quickly. But I also get it. There are far more countries that are close by to each other there than here in the United States. But their train system is just so efficient, even though I almost missed my train coming home. Luckily, I kept on telling my friends, you guys don't have to wait with me, because I was going home. You don't have to wait with me. Luckily, they did, because they changed. My train was like over an hour late, and they changed the track. And I didn't hear it they didn't hear it until like the last minute, and we had to run with my luggage to the other track. It was a situation. Just when everything was cool, we were there early. We were catching up. Cologne's Pride. Okay, I've fast forwarded a lot. So Cologne's Pride was a lot. It was a lot. A lot of people, a lot of German that I did not understand. But there was, some of the performances though were in English. So that was really cool to see. Seeing all, catching up with my friends and things like that. That was really cool. I think I've outgrown Pride. I don't care what country it's in. And I say this now and then I'll be like, oh, I'm going to this Pride just because I want to see it because it's still different in a way, but it's very similar. And I literally left New York the day of New York City's big Pride. And I left at the right time because y'all already know on Twitter they were trying to cancel me for the Andy Cohen situation, which we will revisit because I find it so interesting. Y'all want to slam me for video footage that I didn't take. Just saying. And Bethany and Jill are exposing Andy and Bravo for basically bamboozling them. We'll talk. Anyways, so I went to Cologne for the weekend for the Pride for the very first time going to the Pride. But this was my third trip to Cologne because my friend who used to live here in New York, who's German, he's from Cologne, moved back there years ago, but we've reconnected when I started going to Amsterdam. He came to visit me in Amsterdam, then I visited him. I went there for like New Year's one year when I was in Berlin. I love traveling, but I gotta start Africa. I just don't know where to start. I don't know how to start. I don't know where. I gotta figure it out. I don't know when, where, or what. I definitely think 2024 though. But there's so many places that I want to see. But I've done my share of Europe. But there's still places in Europe that I want to see. So I did Cologne Pride. And then after Cologne Pride, I did come back. I did make it back to Cologne for a couple more days. I wasn't there that much longer. So I did meet up with my friends that Tuesday. And we spent the day in The Hague. Because some of you hit me up and talked about another part of The Hague that I hadn't seen. This wasn't my first time to The Hague. It's another city. It's actually the capital, right? I can't remember it. It's the capital. Well, that's where all the business is done. That's also where the king lives. Anyways, so I've been to The Hague before. Very cute city. But this was the first time that I went to this particular part, the beach, where people go to the beach and hang out. I saw people bungee jumping. I saw people doing like the zip line. I even went inside this beautiful hotel that's right there by the beach because they have so much really wonderful artwork. So we did that. We caught up. We laughed. We ate. All that good stuff. We talked about dating. All of this stuff. We caught up. Me and my sisters that I call my Dutch sisters in the Netherlands. So that was a really good time. My final day before I left the next day, I just sort of wanted to catch up, get last minute gifts and things like that for people, and just walk around this city that I love walking around. It was a beautiful day, great weather. I mean, all of Europe was having sort of like a heat wave, but Amsterdam had a little bit of a heat wave and then it cooled off. Why on the last day? Because I was just talking to my friend because she had gotten mosquito bites. I had gotten mosquito bites on the first day in Athens. But then I was like, oh, okay, I'm good. I haven't gotten anything. I've never gotten mosquito bites in Amsterdam, I don't think. On the last day, a mosquito came into the apart hotel that I was staying in because that was the one downside of the Wittenberg was there was no air conditioning, and they gave me a fan, but the fan really wasn't blowing great. So I had to open the windows to get some air in there. So I opened the window and I must have let one mosquito in. And honestly, on the last day that I was leaving, I heard the mosquito fly past my ear. And then I saw it and I was like, this is the damn mosquito that bit me up. Like, I literally bit me up. Mosquitoes love me. I don't know why. I hate it because I swell up. It's not like, some of you probably just get like a bite. No, I swell up. It's itchy. Ugh, disgusting. As soon as I saw that mosquito, I was like, time to go. I got my luggage and I was like, I don't care if I'm early. I'm going downstairs. I'm getting out of here. So that was really my trip in a nutshell. Yes, there's probably all kinds of things in between. I did tours, I hung out, I ate, I relaxed, all of those things. A really great time. I will say this, and this was the first time I ever did this. When I was in the airport going back home, I finally went to, they have those massage places in there. So I went to the massage. The lady in the I forgot what they call it. Calm is one of the sponsors. So I went in there and got a massage before my flight. It was good too. I needed it. Look, I wanted to get a massage when I was in Amsterdam. I just didn't think of it. Anyways, so I came back to work, back to real life. I will say this though, a couple of days ago, I was just like, I miss Amsterdam. And usually at the end of a trip, I'm sort of like, I'm ready to go home. And I was at the end of this trip. I was like, I'm ready to kind of go home. I kind of was ready. I was like, can I extend my trip? But I was like, no, let me get back. Let me take care of some things and things like that. Anyways, so the other day, I was sort of like, I kind of miss Amsterdam. Kind of miss traveling. So I was looking at flights. Stay tuned. Anyways, I'm back. I'm getting work done. Look, I'm doing a visual version of the podcast. For those that are listening, there will be a visual version on the Kempire Radio YouTube channel if you're not subscribed. Anyways, so let's talk about the Real Housewives of New York. So if you missed it, I've already done recaps on the Real Housewives of Atlanta and things like that. More to come in regards to Atlanta. I'm kind of ready for the season to be over. Atlanta for me it's not spectacular. And I blame casting, I blame production because I just didn't see why they were bringing back the same cast. I felt like they need to kind of mix it up. And I still want to see Sonya come back because I feel like Sonya might be different if she didn't have Sheree and Marlo there. I'm ready for look, they've tried with Sheree. You can move on. Sheree is not offering us anything. She by Sheree is not giving us anything. You can barely get merch. Drew, I have to say, even though I feel like she lies a lot, I still feel like she's still carrying this show. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. She's definitely carried the rest of this season with the drama that's happening with her and Ralph, Tommy. And Marlo, she's just not a great housewife. I don't believe this relationship with Scott Lee. No one believes this relationship with Scott Lee. But I just don't believe, like Marlo's funny in her confessionals, but she's still just giving friend of vibes. And honestly, at this point, I don't need her to come back as a friend of, because to me, she offers nothing. Kenya. Some people are saying that Kenya's offering nothing in regards to her storyline. She's not giving us her full storyline. They're tired of her and her divorce. Yeah, I'm tired of it too. But I thought to myself the other day, I was like, you know what? Kenya is good when she has good adversaries. When she had a Portia, when she had a Nene, when she had a Phaedra, that's when Kenya is activated. But some of you also say, well, that's when they also made her the villain. Well, look, I don't know. But I can also see why people aren't necessarily feeling Kenya either in this particular moment, because they're sort of like, well, Kenya's not bringing a lot either. But I also feel like the chemistry amongst this cast is not there either. And I think that is the problem. And I blame production for that. But after the Real Housewives of New York newest season, the new reboot, the new cast premiered this week, I have to say, all of the haters, it's like crickets. It's like crickets. Do I have crickets? Oh, wait, no. Wait.
That's not really.
No, I don't have crickets. Anyways, I'm keeping that. I'm keeping my fourth wall in for the love of Candace. Sidebar, speaking of Candace. So this other thing that we missed this week, but I've talked about, is the Real Housewives of Potomac brawl that happened. And it doesn't even involve really any of the housewives. Candace is somewhat involved, but she wasn't physically involved. It was Kiana, who's an official friend of, and Deborah, who's desperate to be on this show. At this point, I don't know what happened. I don't know the real story. Based off the video footage that TMZ had, it looks like Deborah was the first to try and throw a drink on Candace. I don't know if it made it on Kiana. Kiana gets involved. The story originally came out that Deborah dragged Kiana, but the video footage said otherwise. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act holier than thou. I'm like, oh, I do not like fighting on my shows. I don't really, though. If I wanted fighting on my shows, I'd be watching and talking about Zeus. I don't. I honestly hope that production completely ignores this fight, because it's not really relevant to the show. Unless it is. I don't know what they've filmed so far. I don't know if Deborah's a part of any of the drama. But if they can ignore it, I would prefer them ignore it. People were dragging Giselle, saying that Giselle was the woman in the footage you see pulling on Kiana's hair. That woman is not Giselle Bryant. I'm still just dumbfounded that this whole party situation was for a Giselle and Ashley activewear line. Why isn't Giselle doing an activewear line with her friend, Robin, who actually looks like she works out? But I told you guys, though, Giselle likes a pool workout. Just saying, she likes a pool workout. Interesting. I'm happy that they're utilizing their business, like their platform, and they're making businesses because they need to. Ashley needs to. Giselle needs to. This is what they should be doing, and not just some sort of like fluffy business. Like make a real business where people can buy the things. At least they're doing it. Look at Sheree. Sheree's been talking about She by Sheree for forever, and now She by Sheree. Still, people find it hard to buy things on her website or are not interested. I think if her launch went seamlessly, people would be a little bit more interested. But Sheree forever, she's just like, she's the walking epitome of this. Anyways, Real Housewives of New York. So because everyone's reaction to this first episode of the Real Housewives of New York is so well received, now people are saying Bravo needs to do it in other cities. Well, according to sources, they are definitely considering it. Right? I was like, what? And I know you all probably saw Andy's emoji that he posted when people asked him, like, you should do this in other cities. And I forgot what the emoji was. I don't know if it was sort of like the thinking emoji. I don't remember. But it was sort of like, a possibility. But according to sources, they're saying that Bravo is seriously considering rebooting other cities. No word on which city. I don't know if they are brave enough to do Atlanta yet. But a lot of you have been saying Atlanta, Potomac, New Jersey. And the obvious one, the OC, is not even a part of the conversation. Maybe you guys just don't care enough about the OC to reboot it. And I know some of you are saying, well, the OC this season's not that bad. Yeah, but you guys aren't watching it either. I mean, the ratings are decent, but when we review the OC, y'all don't show up for those reviews either. Okay, maybe my audience is not interested in the OC, but I also follow quite a few other pages, and I don't see a lot of people talking or reacting to Orange County like they talk about New Jersey, Atlanta, or Potomac. Like those shows are still doing quite well, probably even better. And I definitely don't see them rebooting Beverly Hills just yet. Not until after this season. I could see it possibly happening in Atlanta. I don't see it happening in Potomac. Not yet. We'll see how this new season does. And I don't see them doing it in New Jersey just yet. Maybe after this season as well. Speaking of New Jersey, word on the street is that everyone's coming back next season. Then there's this whole debate on contracts. Well, those contracts sometimes, they get those contracts after filming. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Word on the street, the newest housewife in the Real Housewives of Dubai just got her contract. See, this is why it's important to listen to the podcast. Dropping all kind of tea. Yeah. That new, was it Talina or something like that? She's the newest housewife. She was just here in New York. Oh, she was just here in New York filming her green screen. Introduction. Allegedly. I saw the photo though. So she just got her full-time contract. Sometimes they're filming and then that's when they figure out, are you going to be full-time? Are you going to be a friend of? So please understand, all of what you think is Bible when it comes to the Real Housewives world is not Bible. Okay, they are always changing things. That whole Bethenny clause, that's not for everyone. And some other housewives, I can't think of the specific ladies that have said it. They were like, yeah, Bravo doesn't get any percentage. Yes, it was created on the show, but they don't get a percentage. It's all about your team. It's all about your own attorneys and how you negotiate. So for those of you that are getting into reality TV and you think, oh, it's a given, don't let them fool you. No, don't let them fool you and try to bamboozle you out of just because this is a rumor on the street. And this is why Andy and these executives don't want to talk about salaries and these contracts, because they're trying to bamboozle people. All right, speaking of bamboozle, we'll talk about Real Housewives of New York in a second. So Bethany and Jill Zarin did a podcast episode that shook the Housewives world. I don't know about shook. I listened to the podcast and I thought it was nice to hear these two women that we all loved on the Real Housewives of New York original cast come together and finally make peace. They made peace a while ago, but they weren't friendly. By the end of this podcast, Bethenny says she's open to at least rekindling the once friendship that they had. And this took a long time. So a couple of things that came out from this. So Jill mentions Bobby's funeral. We saw Bobby's funeral. I forgot what season it was. You remember the ladies try to drag Bethenny for bringing cameras to the funeral. Well, come to find out, Jill says that she didn't know that cameras were going to be there. She never signed a release. The only reason why Bravo did it, they're like, she won't sue us. We believe that she will not sue us. And she didn't. But she did speak with Bravo. She did have conversations with Bravo. According to Jill, she did have conversations about memorializing Bobby on the show. Very much like what we all were saying we hope they would do with Greg Leaks, which they didn't do. And I feel like we missed out on something on the show. I feel like that would have been nice to do. And I get it. Because of the situation with Nene, that's impossible. However, Jill says she was having conversations with Bravo, Andy, in regards to memorializing Bobby in some way. However, she was just as surprised to see Bethenny at this funeral because I believe this was filmed before not filmed, that Bethenny had went to sit Shiva with Jill. And Jill had agreed, like, I'm not going to mention that you came or anything like that. So she was surprised to see Bethenny here. And she also says there were tons of cameras outside. Whatever cameras are outside, she was like, TMZ was there. So she wasn't thinking these were cameras for Bravo. And she says the only reason why she didn't make a big deal about it was because when she finally saw it, and she saw it like when we all saw it, when they started with the promo, she said when she finally saw the episode, she said they did a decent job with it. They were respectful. What she also dropped in this conversation, because Bethenny also said that she didn't know about what Jill was telling her. She's like, she's called it disgusting. She's like, really? They didn't tell you that they were going to use this and film? And she says, no. The other thing that she says, the reason why the other ladies, specifically Ramona and Dorinda, were upset were because the other ladies were going to sit Shiva, like a separate day, like a Friday, sit Shiva with Jill and remember Bobby. And once they found out about Bethenny filming, they all didn't want to do it. Once they found out that Bethenny had filmed, they were like, no. I guess they didn't want to play a second fiddle. So you could see why they were annoyed at the reunion about Bethenny. And at the reunion, Andy says, we wanted to film it. Jill knew that we were going to film it. Apparently not. So Andy and this network's underhand, because Jill really, look, no matter how you feel about Jill, I don't think that Jill's a liar. And I really believed her in this conversation with Bethenny. It was like two yentas go back. That is a lot. Between Bethenny and all of her histrionics and Jill and her histrionics, it was a lot. But I had to listen to it. And I had to get through it. I did. So we had them talk about that whole situation and how the network sort of kind of bamboozled them in filming this whole situation because they also didn't know how Jill was going to react when Bethenny showed up at the funeral. Jill could have been like, why are you here? You know what I mean? You just never know. And maybe they were counting on something like that. Who knows? Only for all of you to be like, yeah, see, these are the moments about Andy Cohen, because Andy Cohen is an executive. He makes a lot more decisions than you guys even realize. For them to sort of like do this whole, song and dance to make it seem like they were, going to memorialize him, but to do these underhanded moves, like under table moves, like whoever filmed that video of Andy at Pride. I'm just saying. Because when I think about things like that, and I think about all the things that people have said behind the scenes about Andy Cohen and him not being the greatest person, I was like, y'all forget about who y'all talking about. But it's okay. It's all right. We've moved on. The internet has moved on. You understand it's my job. I wasn't at the club because y'all already know I had an early flight the next day. You thought, I wish I could have been at the club. No, I don't, because that's not who I am anymore. I haven't celebrated Pride in forever. I'm commenting on things that are on the internet. I know some of you are shook that I can make a living off of something like this. And you may be at your dead-end job and you mad at me because I can make a living doing my passion. You can too. I had a dead-end job too at one point. You just have to work towards your goals. Stop being hateful. But shout out to all of you that understood. You're like, this is what he does. What is wrong with you people? That's not his video footage. Clearly, the watermark tells you whose footage it is. We cite our sources. I wasn't even trying to pretend like, oh, it's my exclusive video. No, we cite our sources. Look. Anyways, but I found it so interesting when they talk about disgusting and underhanded how the network and possibly Andy Cohen have been in regards to the handling of the Bobby situation. I was just like, and that's only one particular story. There are probably countless other stories that people have said over the years and could say, and they haven't said. But anyways, this is a lesson for all of us, because just when you think like, oh my God, they're trying to cancel me, people move on to the next story. Now they're trying to cancel somebody else, I'm sure. But they were only trying to cancel me on Twitter. Everywhere else, you guys understood. Shout out to TikTok. Shout out to Facebook. Shout out to YouTube. You guys understood. And shout out to our podcast fam. Anyways, so the podcast was interesting with Bethany and Jill and their reaction to everything over the years. So they talked about the Bobby situation. They talked about the whole negotiation for Ultimate Girls Trip Legacy. Jill says that Ultimate Girls Trip Legacy ended up being her idea. She told Luann about it, and Luann told the network about it. And she felt as if them not including her, because they were including her up until like the last minute, them not including her on the Ultimate Girls situation was punitive, that they were punishing her for speaking out about the negotiations, because you know that she was being asked and things like that. But she said she wasn't the original person that went to the press. She believes that it was the network that went to the press. Very similar to what Nene has said over the years in regards to like that whole Portia situation with Simon Gobadia. She was like, that's the network that elevates these stories because it generates interest in their show and their network. And I was just like, interesting. It was a good episode. It was definitely a good episode. I'm glad they didn't slam the Real Housewives of New York newbies. I didn't think that they would, but apparently they may end up recapping the show. I don't know if I want them to do that either. I don't know. Maybe. Let's test it out and then we'll see how we feel about it. But speaking of the show, I thought the Real Housewives of New York newbies, I am on record at saying, I just want to wait and watch the show. I'm not hating on any of these women. I'm not getting caught up in any of what's going on. You all are hating on a show you haven't watched. To me, that's the highest level of ignorance. Basing your opinion on something that you haven't seen. I'm like, where do they do that at? Apparently on the internet. But now everyone is saying something else. They're like, oh my God, I love it. This is amazing. Wait, hold on, not that one. This is amazing. It's so refreshing. It is refreshing. I don't have one favorite. I like everyone, but a lot of you love Jenna Lyons, and I like her too. I'm very impressed that she went from being an assistant to the president of J. Crew. Only that stuff, those stories, there's so many amazing stories like that here in New York, but I'm so glad that we're showcasing it. I'm so glad that we're showcasing real diversity. I get it. What we had before, and I'm grateful that we had the original Roni, but I'm grateful for the Roni that we have now, because there are so many women from different backgrounds and religious backgrounds and colors and financial backgrounds that are doing big things here in New York. When we recapped the Real Housewives of New York on YouTube, one of you said that it would have been nice to kind of get like, someone from Harlem, someone with energy from Harlem. And I was like, you know what, that would have been nice. But look, we also don't want them to force chemistry. And that's the one amazing thing about this new cast. I felt like the chemistry amongst this new cast felt natural. It felt like, even though I don't believe all of them really knew each other, I felt like it felt real. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like what some of you are saying on And Just Like That, which I will talk about on our YouTube channel. I still have to rewatch those last couple of episodes. I have been doing a lot of catching up since I've been back. I can't believe the amount of stuff that I've missed TV wise, including the writers and actors strike. Solidarity with them. Because literally, I just saw Mandy Moore talk about she had received a check for residuals from streaming for 1 penny for This Is Us. 1 penny? And this is why it's so important. I know some people are like, oh, these rich actors are complaining. Well, no. There are some of those rich actors, but there are tons of other. If Mandy Moore is getting a penny, what about the person that was just a guest star? What about the writer? The disparities on the CEOs making millions and these writers and actors not making a penny? Come on. They got to do better. However, I don't know what they're going to do. I know right now they're more focused now probably on reality content because of this writer's strike. But no, we need to make sure that we are still talking and putting our foot on their necks in regards to making sure that writers and actors are paid the way that they should be paid. The disparities in Hollywood continues. And this disparity also affects the watchers and the listeners of this content. You don't realize this. You're paying these people's salaries. You are. So you want your actors, your favorite actors, to be happy in continuing to want to work in this world of entertainment and paid accordingly. Just saying. And shout out to Fran Drescher. I had no idea that Fran Drescher was the president of SAG. When did she become president? Someone tell me. Anyways. But yeah, solidarity to them. But the Real Housewives of New York, I love them. I love Sai. And a lot of you have been following Sai for a very long time and been familiar with her work. Brynn is my favorite. She's my favorite because she just seems bubbly. She's over the top, but it feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. I like Giselle. Giselle, funny, quirky. I like her. Jenna, I like too. Quirky. I liked seeing them hang out together. Giselle's mother, gorgeous, 66 years old. Erin, I like too. Erin, I still need to Google schmoogle that whole toxic work environment that they were alleging from an intern in regards to you. But I still like her. I still like her because she's born and raised in New York. Who else? Uba, gorgeous. Every time I eat a banana now, I think of Uba. A lot of people are comparing her to Chanel Ayan. I thought we all knew. I thought Chanel had told you guys that they were cousins. Or was that just inside information that I knew? Ooh. Yeah, so I mean, I can see why people are comparing Uba and Chanel, but I also feel like they're very different. I still feel like they're very different. Big, bubbly personalities, yes. I'm excited. I'm excited for this new era of New York. It's my favorite. It was always my favorite city of this franchise. So it was sad to kind of see it not being around. It's been like 2 years. So finally, they are back. I don't know how I feel about Crappy Lake. It's cute. It's light energy. It's a nice little spinoff. I don't love it the way that you guys love it, but I'll keep watching. I'll keep talking about it during our YouTube recaps. So I thought this was good. This was a good start. I hope that it just continues to get better and better. This was a great start. And shout out to Catch, the restaurant. Shout out to Catch. Damn. Anyways, guys, that is it. That is it. Of course, there will be more things to talk about because here on the Kempire Radio podcast, we are talking about everything that we don't get a chance to talk about anywhere else. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Rate us a 5 because rating is so important. You know, everybody named Mama. All these celebrities are launching podcasts. So that pushes smaller podcasts like myself down the list that they don't show up as options for you. So be sure to tell a friend about the Kempire Radio podcast. And don't forget to rate us a 5 on your favorite podcast platform. All right. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you on YouTube. See the visual version of this on the Kempire Radio YouTube channel.